So welcome, Megalithomaniacs. Thanks for joining us once again. We're here back with Andrew Collins, part two of our double session, looking at the Taş Tepeler sites of Turkey. Now we're going to be looking at the site of Sayburç, which is located not too far from Şanlıurfa. It's in the vicinity of some other sites like Yanlıhoyak and Yogunberç and a couple of others. And this is really where stuff's starting to come out. The excavation's begun. It's partly buried the site under a village, which has been there for at least since the 1940s, although we've been told 100 years ago they knew about some of the discoveries there. And what is coming out of there is pretty amazing. And so we're going to get into that. We're going to have a discussion about what is there. And also, Andrew's going to jump in and give a kind of short lecture looking at this new discovery relating to what the symbols on the remarkable stone panel that has been found there, what it really is and what it really means. This is myself and JJ had a chance to visit there. We also went there with Andrew and Ufuk and Nestle. We had a whole kind of team effort there in December 2022, and we got access to parts of the site which surprised us, like an underground chamber. We had a quick look at the new excavation, although much of it's covered up. But Andrew's got some fascinating ideas about this we're gonna jump into in a moment. But firstly, the name of Sayburç is what really got me, because whilst we were on our last tour there in May, not only did we get a chance to look at the amazing panel with the 3D relief of the guy with all these things, which Andrew's going to talk about, but we worked out by talking to Sabatin, who's our tour operator, tour guide from Van area, Lake Van, but he's kind of got Kurdish connections, but he's also Turkish. And we had a look at that, and we checked it on Google Translate and other such things, and we realized Sayburç has a profound meaning. Say in Turkish, S-A-Y, translates as count or counting, which is interesting in its own right. And the birch, the B-U-R-C with the little thing off the bottom of the C, that translates to sign of the zodiac or horoscope, which really surprised me. But then Sabatin pointed out, well, actually in Kurdish, B-I-R-C, pronounced the same way, like birch or Burke, is means tower or watchtower. So we have this kind of encapsulating this kind of multiple meaning into one short name, which has been with the place for over 100 years, apparently, possibly much longer. It's probably a memory of the location, which the village that built over the ancient site of Sayburç. So we've got this kind of strange meaning linking with astronomy, astrology, possibly a watchtower, an observation point, and also the fact that they were counting, whether that's counting the months, the days, the years, the stars, we don't know, but it all seems to be connected and had this astrological and astronomical significance. And I think that is actually fits in with what you're going to share with us now, Andrew. So I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, there's going to be some other big sites coming up. We've got Göbekli Tepe, we've got Karahantepe, and Sayburç is going to be, let's say the next big thing. It's just a few miles to the west of Şanlıurfa, the main city in this area, and obviously the centre of the whole province itself, in which Taş Tepeler is located. We were able to get there in December. We just turned up with our Turkish friends, and started talking to the locals there, and they were very hospitable, and allowed us to look at the discoveries there. The first thing you notice when you arrive at this farm, and we'll come on to where all this goes in a minute, but is that the archaeologists have been doing excavations. They've got down to the bedrock, and what they're finding is that there are a number of T-shaped pillars all over the place. They're just being used for by the farmer, just as edgings of things. Also as posts and stuff like this. These are all quite, they're just there, basically. This one here, for instance, you can see what they call the necktie, which is like this V-shaped collar. You can see it there. And there are several examples like this, just lying about the farm. But you can see that the archaeologists have been looking there. They found this quarrying area, which they're not sure whether it's Roman or whether it does date back to the Taş Tepeler, pre-pottery Neolithic age. But there are some strange markings on the level bedrock, which I know that Hugh has gone into in his own video to do with Sayburç. We won't worry about that at the moment. But I mean, essentially, this site is huge. I mean, new excavations are going on about 200 or 300 meters from this position here. And they've uncovered already a series of enclosures, probably quite small enclosures at the moment, with smallish T-pillars, probably 1 to 2 meters in height. But they reckon that this complex goes from there all the way to this site here. And the significance of this site is that you've got this farmhouse, and the people have known for arguably the last century that there are weird carvings on a elliptical enclosure beneath their very farmhouse. And they knew eventually that these were of archaeological significance and that they were similar to what was being found at Göbekli Tepe, but feared telling the authorities because they feared what would happen once they did. And, their fears were realized when it was realized when the archaeologists came here, saw all of this and basically said, right, your farmhouse is going to have to come down. We're going to excavate this whole area. Now, this is a very unfortunate situation. And it doesn't seem as if it's only going to be this house, but there's various farm buildings and houses going to be taken down in Sayburç for this very reason. But obviously, let's look at it on a more positive note at the moment of what they've actually found, because on the wall of this underground enclosure, they found this guy here with these two huge felines, almost certainly panther leopards, approaching him, and their style is in that which is found at Göbekli Tepe and dates probably to the pre-pottery Neolithic age period. So anything from about 9,600 to about 8,800 BC. I mean, they're almost identical to carvings. They could even be done by the same artist. But you obviously got this guy in the middle, and he's holding his phallus here, and he's looking outwards. I mean, what exactly he's doing, we can only but speculate. But he's looking directly south. So he's actually positioned directly north, which seems to conform with the fact that in so many of the cult buildings at pre-pottery Neolithic sites, most of what's going on is in the north. In other words, this is the area towards which you face to do ritualistic activity. Anyway, you got this guy, but then immediately to his left, as we're looking towards him, which is obviously towards the west, you can start to see that there's other imagery. And by the way, this is all carved out the bedrock. And you can see, obviously, this bull and a guy there, and this is what you see. So you've got this huge, great bovine, which is probably an oryx. And you've got this guy here to his right, and he's got something around his midriff, which I think some people suggest could be a misplaced phallus, but who knows? And he's holding what appears to be a live snake with its head down. Now, others have suggested it could be something else. We're not sure entirely. But he's obviously looking towards this huge bovine that's approaching him and seems to be advancing and maybe even beginning to rear upwards. As you can see, both of the feet seem to be off the ground. And you look at this, you think, well, what is going on here? Well, I was in conversation and talking about this to Debbie Cartwright, who we've obviously already mentioned. And she said, well, it's obvious, isn't it? I said, is it? And she said, well, this is bull leaping. I said, what? She said, well, he's trying to leap over the bull. Look at the position of his legs and his feet. He's leaping off the ground. And I looked at this and I thought, she's right. Oh my God. Yes, this is bull leaping. And then if you look at the position of bull leaping, I mean, this is a modern picture. Well, sorry, obviously it's a modern picture. I mean, this is a picture of bull leaping taking place in southwestern France in modern times in 2006. And look at the stance of this character. It's almost identical to the guy there. I mean, look, they're in exactly the same position. So is it therefore possible that what we see at Sayburç is the earliest example of bull leaping anywhere in the world? Now, we know bull leaping, of course, most obviously from Minoan Crete. So during the early to late Bronze Age, you have this tradition of bull leaping going on. I mean, this is, obviously a mural, a fresco from the palace at Knossos in Crete. And you can see somebody here leaping over a bull, another person obviously, grabbing hold of the bull's horns in the process of doing this. And I mean, there is other imagery there as well as statues. So, I mean, this was assumed to be where bull leaping began. But what's interesting is that, let your eyes get familiar with this. This is a vase from a site called Taş Tepe, which is an early Neolithic site in the Sungurlu district of Turkey's Çorum province, which is in, I think, north to northwest of the country. And it's a vase with what they call polychrome relief. It dates to about 1650 BC. And this shows not only dancers and musicians going around it, but what is quite clearly bull leaping. And this is not considered to be influenced by what was happening in Minoan Crete, suggesting that bull leaping was going on in early Hittite times in Anatolia, obviously the very country in which the Taş Tepeler culture had been many thousands of years earlier. Now, quite clearly, we're dealing with a gap of time here, which is sort of 7,500 years or so, maybe more. But is it possible that bull leaping was a sport and had been practiced in Anatolia all the way through to this age here? Now, I mean, bull leaping itself is something that is more widespread. It's suggested that it took place in Central Asia, and there's also evidence that it may have been practiced by the Indus Valley civilization. I mean, you've got this carving here, which is in a museum in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu, which shows a practice which is still done to this day in this region, although perhaps not as violently, called Jalil Katru, which means bull controlling. And you can see here that this person, grabbing hold of the horns of this bull and presumably about to try and either leap over it or certainly trying to control the actions of the bull. And I understand that this sport involves eventually, you actually going onto the back of the bull, holding on to its horns until eventually the bull comes to a halt. And then, of course, you've tamed the bull. So, this is quite widespread. So is it possible that all of this does actually begin with what was going on in southeast Turkey within the Taş Tepeler culture? But what I find interesting with this carving is, look directly above what's going on here. You've got a snake. Now, what relationship there might be between snakes and bull leaping, I've absolutely no idea. But if this guy at Sayburç really is holding a snake, then is this part of this process? I don't know. But the other important thing that I think this is beginning to tell us is the origins of the Taş Tepeler culture. Now, in various of my books, I've talked about incoming peoples from the north, probably via the Caucasus, from places like the Russian steppe, who would be described by the archaeologists as epigravatian or epipaleolithic peoples coming in and influencing the foundation of the very earliest Taş Tepeler settlements on the Tigris as early as 10,000 BC, and then probably moving westwards into the Şanlıurfa province and creating the T-pillar culture that we know of, probably about 13 different sites now. But it's quite clear that there were other influences coming to bear on Taş Tepeler. You would have had people coming in from the south, from the Levant, possibly as far as Helwan in Egypt, which was an incredibly important site that even Klaus Schmidt, the discoverer of Göbekli Tepe, wrote a whole paper linking Helwan in Egypt with the what we call Taş Tepeler culture today, to do with the different stone tools. But the other influence that we're pretty certain, I think, is coming in and having some impact on what's going on would have been coming in from the Mediterranean. And when I say the Mediterranean, I'm talking about the coast of Anatolia, probably right the way across to the Aegean Islands, possibly even to Cyprus as well. And what we know about that is that there was a maritime culture involved in this that was reaching between Anatolia and the Levant and Cyprus, which is a minimum distance of about 50 kilometers. And this would have meant that they had seafaring vessels, and almost certainly would have been associated with various different islands, most obviously Crete, most obviously Cyprus, other places, perhaps Rhodes, which is not far from the Anatolian coast. And of course, this makes us start thinking about the peoples who would later rise up in these places in the Bronze Age, and what we know about their art, their reliefs, their religion, their beliefs, their practices. And could it be, with this ball leaping that we see here, that this is the earliest form of some kind of contact, with this Mediterranean culture? I mean, that's just pure speculation at this time. It's something that I talk about in a new book, which which will be coming out, called, I hope, something like Karahantepe, Civilization, the Anunnaki, and the Cosmic Origins of the Serpent of Eden, or something like that. The publisher likes really long titles for some reason. So, this is basically where we're at, I think. And, here's just the plugs. I think we should get these in. If people want to join us out in Turkey, we go there a couple of times a year, going there in September this year. That's basically fully booked, although we're going back there in May and September 2024. As you've seen, we discover new stuff when we're on these tours. They aren't simply us explaining what's going on. They're research trips as well. And some of the people in our group make incredible discoveries at the same time. The whole bone plaque in Şanlıurfa Museum that we found shows twin pillars was noted by one of the members of our group, Matt. And he had better eyesight than us, and he saw it. We were looking at it. We didn't even see the carved, incised imagery on it. And things like this. And obviously, during this last visit out there in May this year, one of our people suggests that the pillar shrine and the carved groove could be a sperm, although that probably was not the case. That triggered this whole idea that the pillar shrine could be a 3D head of a snake. So, come with us and on this incredible adventure. So obviously we're going to Egypt as well, although that's not what this shows. This shows the Origins conference flyer, where you'll hear much more about all that we're talking about here, from myself, Hugh, JJ, the other great speakers, Graham Phillips, who we mentioned, and Debbie, who's an incredible person. She's, on an intuitive level, she's second to none. She's going to be talking about, the whole beliefs and practices of shamanism and how it relates to everything that we've been talking about. So she'll be there talking in November. So, do join us. And as I said, we're going to Egypt in November. Find out about all of this on megalithomania.co.uk and on my site, andrewcollins.com. And if you do want to go with us to Egypt, or you're just interested in Egypt in general, my new book, The First Female Pharaoh, is released this month in the UK. You can now get that at all good online bookstores. And that's about it, really. So back to you, sir.
Superb. Thank you very much, Andrew. The insights about Sayburch are just absolutely compelling. I think you're really onto something there. And that Indus Valley serpent, the snake above the same imagery is quite strange. So I'm sure a lot more meaning is going to come out of that site the more it gets excavated. So we'll just have to wait and see. So what you share with us, Andrew, is absolutely fascinating. I really appreciate the kind of insights that are starting to come out of there, especially having Debbie involved. It's always a bonus. She's been kind of inspiring you and us for many years, leading us in the kind of direction where this research needs to go. So delighted she's coming to speak at Origins in November. Of course, we've got people like Robert Temple there as well, and Irving Finkel, the Mesopotamian kind of master from the British Museum, amongst others. So we're going to be sharing a lot of new research at that particular conference. I'm going to be launching my new book, the wooden book called Göbekli Tepe and Karahantepe, the world's first megaliths. That's going to be the official launch of that coming out. And I'm going to be sharing some aspects from that book there. But yes, Sayburch, though, I mean, this is just, to me, one of the most important aspects of what is coming out of the whole Taş Tepeler region. And the fact that so little has been uncovered. But what we've seen, I mean, we've seen like multiple enclosures. We've been around the village, looking at different parts of the village, and we're finding blocks of stone, carved kind of troughs out of stone, which they could have been brewing beer in like 11,000 years ago. Found underground water kind of wells, like bell-shaped things like you find at Karahantepe and at other places, way outside the village. And so this could turn out to be, you know, one of the, if not the most important part of that site, especially with the name of it as well, kind of encoding what it may have been used for. So delighted, you know, we shared that information with everybody, and obviously it's going to be open to the public at some point. We're hoping this year, maybe next year, so we'll be able to take groups there and explore it officially, and because it is so compelling. And as you saw in the last video I made a couple of weeks ago, that we got access to this underground area as well, which is like, you know, just used for like storage and animals and things like that at the moment. But it proves that they were digging underground as well. They were going fully subterranean. Possibly this could be, you know, go back to the era of the whole Taş Tepeler culture. Although some people say it's Roman and things like this because there was a known Roman settlement just near this area. But anyway, so yeah, obviously you can join us there in September. We do tours every September and every May. You can see it all on megalithomania.co.uk, also on andrewcollins.com. We'll get to as many of these sites as we can. And we're going to be sharing it at the Origins Conference on the 4th of November, 2023. And of course, you can join us in ancient Egypt. We take trips out there every November. We're going to be focusing on Sobek Neferu, the theme of Andrew's brand new book, which is coming out now. And yeah, thanks for listening. Thank you, Andrew. There's so much more going on. There's a lot more than this we've got to share with you. We just wanted to kind of give you some highlights of what's been uncovered so far. So thanks for listening. Thank you, Andrew. If you've got anything you'd like to add, please do. And we'll say farewell to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that you can add is that, you know, we're discovering new stuff all the time, and it's only going to continue. You know, the more what archaeologists do at the different sites and the more trips that we make. I mean, you know, we're just finding stuff in villages, and it's stuff which some of the archaeologists are not even aware of. So, you know, there's like two things going on here: what the archaeologists are officially doing, and what we're doing, which is, you know, pure exploration and adventure. And the fruits of that are in the books that we write, the articles, the great videos. So just watch this space. You know, we'll reveal what we can as soon as we can. I mean, we're not going to be holding this back, you know, for books that won't come out for 2 or 3 years or whatever. We'll tell you as we find stuff.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. I really appreciate that. Thanks for your time today and the previous section. And Megalithomaniacs, thanks for watching once again. Please subscribe. Please also subscribe to Andrew's channel. Check that out. And yeah, we hope to see you out exploring these sites in the near future. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.